if we could verify, and I think the prosecutor already addressed the incarceration time. I have to his arrest date down the same that was mentioned by the state, but I want to verify for pretrial incarceration credit, the amount of time he has. And so,
Okay, we need to do that at the hearing, because it becomes part of the judgment of conviction.
I do understand, Your Honor.
Okay, so what do we need to do? Get the arrest date?
Yeah, I do have the arrest date down as October 13th, 2020. I did take a moment to ask the sheriff if I don't know if he had a chance to check. Yeah. Yeah. But I think he's been incarcerated from uh, October 13th, 2020 to today. Isn't that right, Mr. Binion?
Yeah, but it's probably the court days of going to court. Because they gotta book you in every time. The court days of going to court, they gotta book you in every time.
But I can just calculate that. I'm sorry for the delay, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm counting 204 days of credit.
Thank you. 204, Your Honor?
Yeah, be 18 days in the month of October 2020. Then each month, and then through yesterday, because today actually counts as a prison day as opposed to a credit day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I was an English major though, so I think it'd be good if someone checked my math.
I think we have 5 days for that, so I think we're okay.
All right. Okay. Would Mr. Binion like to address the court? And just for the record, the courtroom is open and there's seating available in the gallery. But my clerk received a call just a few minutes ago while Mr. George was giving his comments that there was family members of Mr. Binion who would like the hearing broadcast on YouTube. It's not a big deal. So as you can see on the monitor up in the upper left-hand corner, it's being broadcast live on YouTube now. I didn't have it being broadcast previously because it's an open courtroom and I assumed that people who wanted to come would come. But if they couldn't make it because of some conflict, as indicated in the phone call to my clerk, I've now put it on YouTube for them to see. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Binion, you can go ahead and provide your comments then.
All right, I would like to give you a short briefing of my past. Now, me and my brothers, we was in foster care, so we didn't used to see each other until I got arrested and went to prison, my 2005 case.
Okay.
So, upon my release, I had got released 2011, and then I ended up going back to prison 2011, and then I got out 2014. 2014, while in prison all that time, you know, I learned a lot. I told myself I don't want to go down the wrong path. So I attend technical college, MATC, and became a barber. So
Okay.
that I work every day, but not being around my brothers from our past history, you know, I wanted that bond. So we hung out, we kicked it or whatnot. I knew of what they was doing, but it wasn't a thing for me. I continued cutting hair, but one thing led to another, which the case ended up coming up. But well, my past of being locked up, Your Honor, you know, I'm starting to see that it don't only affect me, it affect my family. I just faced the worstest fear I feel like in my life was my son, right? Because of my absence, he have anger towards me now. So that's like one of my fears because that's one thing I want my kids to feel, you know what I'm saying, like bad towards me. So that being said, you know, I'm having a lot of time thinking in themselves
You
by
got time to
myself.
think now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I just want to put this past behind me because I knew I made wrong choices, but I know what type of man I am. And I know it's a big pot at the end of the rainbow for me.
Okay. Mr. Binion, yeah, I'm glad you're starting to put your life in perspective and the consequences of decisions you make. And I think it's really significant that you're recognizing they don't just affect you. They affect your children. When you go away, that's actually it's punishment on your children too. But you're the cause of it.
Yes.
Because of the decision you make. And it's sad, and I'm really sad to hear that your son has anger. I hope that you just both can open your hearts and forgive each other. And you've got to forgive him for his anger too, because it's a result of decisions you made. But I hope that you can heal that and remake the relationship as a father and son. But it'll take time, it'll take work, it'll take understanding, and it may happen with your other kids as well. But the only way that it ultimately will be healed is if he can trust you to make good decisions. Because if he's not going to commit to loving you unless he knows for sure that you're not going to just leave again and go away to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got to be able to trust you when you say, I'm not going to do this again. And that'll take time because, trust is built not just by words. It's really always built by your actions. And so I hope you are really thinking about that, planning about it. The way you described how this developed with Michael Tate is not surprising because it's the way that it happens a lot of times. So Michael Tate was getting into this dealing, drug trade, and you probably see he's got money in his pocket. He can buy clothes, whatever. And, he probably makes it seem like it's no big deal, pretty easy. And you start small, doing a little, you make a little money, and then you just start sliding down the hill to getting involved all the way. And that's the way it happens to a lot of people in a lot of different situations. It takes, small steps down to hell, really. I mean, you're just taking little steps down the wrong path, and then it gets slippery, and then you're sliding right down into the depths of it. And you can't let that happen ever again. You're running out of time in your life. You can't get involved. And so, it may seem when you get out, there'll be, like there always are, temptations, opportunities to get involved in something is wrong. And you've got to have the strength as a man to just tell people that you may know, people that that you're related to, say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going in a different direction in my life. And that's it. And you've got to be able to be strong. You got to have it planned out. And I hope you can do it. And it's going to take a lot more thinking and a lot more commitment and maybe faith or whatever else you need to be strong enough to do it. And I hope you do it. I hope you do it for your kids' sake and for your own life. So when it comes to sentencing, as your attorney has pointed out, there's a case, the Galleon case, and it lays out the things that a judge has to consider, the factors that are to be considered by a judge at a sentencing hearing. And the case talks about a lot of different factors, but they boil down to 3 essential factors. And those are, number 1, the seriousness of the offense or offenses. Number 2, the character of the defendant. Who is that person? Where are they on their life journey? And number 3, the interests of the community, the interest in the protection of the community. So court weighs and balances the facts that fall under each of those 3 factors, and then tries to come up with the appropriate sentence for the case. And so on the first factor, the seriousness of the offense, you were charged with felon in possession of a firearm. And I'll be honest with you, this is the first case that I've had, I think since I've been a judge, where it's a felon selling a firearm. I see that as aggravated. It's not that you had a firearm in your house, under your bed for home defense if someone breaks into your house and you just have it there. That's bad. If you're a felon, you can't even do that. But you're not out on the street with the gun. Here, you were selling a gun to someone who shouldn't have one. Because if a person is able to buy a gun legally, they'll go to Cabela's or go to Fleet Farm or wherever they want to go and buy a gun legally. The reason a gun's being sold on the street generally is because the person can't buy a gun at a store. And here you're selling a handgun for $400. It's a used handgun. You can probably get a similar handgun for $500 at Cabela's. And so I just have to assume you knew that this was someone who couldn't legally buy a handgun, so they're buying it out on the street. And so that's essentially not just you possessing a handgun as a felon, but knowing that you're going to facilitate someone else. And they may sell it. That person may then trade that gun to someone else, some person, 18-year-old knucklehead who is, got a bad temper, who ends up shooting up a house or a store or something. That's what happens. And we read about it in the paper. And so putting guns on the streets, not knowing who's going to ultimately have it, that it's dangerous. And, we don't have to try hard to hear stories. It was just the other night, over hundreds of shots fired over in that 55th and Capitol neighborhood. It sounded like Afghanistan is what I saw YouTube where someone just stuck their phone out the door, and it sounded like a war zone going on. And that's what happens when people who shouldn't possess firearms are possessing firearms in our community. It's dangerous, and it causes death, serious injuries, and it makes everyone afraid. And so it's wrong. And so I see the felon in possession as a more aggravated felon in possession, because you're putting a gun out on the street to where it shouldn't have been. In terms of the drug dealing, I recognize you weren't the kingpin of this. Sounds like Michael Tate had the connection in Chicago. He may have even kind of convinced you to get involved in that drug trade. But you made the decision to get involved, and so you made that decision as an adult man, and the amount of heroin that was found in the house was relatively significant. I think the complaint said it was 32.8 grams. There was also the 24 bags of cocaine. I recognize that was a read-in charge, but those are not insignificant amounts. They're not, a gram or two. Those are more significant drug dealing amounts. And just as your attorney may have told you, all I do is felony drug crime in this case, or in this courtroom. So it's pretty much all heroin and cocaine, some methamphetamine. Fentanyl, of course, is mixed in, but that's all I've done for coming up on 2 years now. So I understand the amounts. I understand how things work. And I just want you to understand that this is not the first drug case that I've seen. And I don't need to talk too much about the danger of heroin. We know it kills people in our community. We had, again, a record number of overdose deaths in Milwaukee County in 2020. It causes all kinds of other negative problems in our community. Mothers who get addicted can't take care of their children. The children get taken away by CPS, get raised in foster homes because parents are drug addicted. People turn to crime. They start stealing, shoplifting, robbing to get money for drugs. All of those are negative things in our community because of the drug dealing, drug use. And so that's why we don't want it here, because all it does is cause misery and death. And the drug dealers are profiting from misery and death in our community. And so that's why we have to take it seriously. We don't want it here. In terms of the interest and protection of the community, you need to make the decisions and have the message in your head that this is wrong, it's not worth it, and you can never get involved in anything like this again. And so you need to have that message loud and clear. We also have to send the message to the community at large that this is wrong. If you do this, it's serious. It's not business as usual. It's not a joke. So I weigh and balance those considerations. Just a couple other points in considering this. I'm putting a very significant amount of weight on the fact that you cooperated. That shows that you're taking responsibility for doing wrong. It shows that you're thinking about the big picture, our community that we want to live in and be a safe, healthy place for our kids to live in. And, being on the right side of the law, making our community a better place. And so I give you a lot of credit for that. I recognize how difficult the decision was, because it's not just some guy who got involved in drug dealing with you. It's a blood relative. I recognize how hard it is. I recognize that it was a decision about maybe never seeing that person again, or sitting down at a barbecue with that person again. And that's a hard decision. I recognize that. I give you credit for making a real hard decision. You're a guy who's got skills. You're intelligent. You went and got your barber training education. You in a way can write your own ticket. Most people, maybe not me, need a haircut all the time. And so it's something that you can do yourself, be an independent, self-supporting, productive person, be providing a good service, a helpful service in our community, and you can do it. And It's a matter of just staying committed to that. And you may not be the richest guy in the neighborhood or in the community, but you'll be someone who's making it themselves, and you can be proud of what you do, and your children can be proud of what you do if you live that lifestyle where you're just being an honest, hardworking person. So, you know, those in terms of mitigation, I give you credit for pleading guilty, of course. Accepting responsibility, that's the first big step in terms of a recognition of what you were doing was wrong, and that you need to change your ways. So there's a number of things that I have to tell you as part of sentencing. First of all, based on my calculation, I'm going to give you 204 days of credit applied against the sentence. I am required to order that you provide a DNA sample and pay the related DNA assessment. I am going to assess standard court costs on the case. I would order that the Department of Corrections collect any monetary amounts ordered today at the maximum rate allowed by statute while you're in DOC custody. I would order that when you're released, the costs and assessments that may remain be paid as a condition of your extended supervision. If they're not paid by the end of that, a civil judgment would be entered against you for the balance that's owed. Again, by the felony convictions, you may never again possess a firearm. If you were to do so, you'd face up to 10 years of total imprisonment. Your voting rights are suspended until they are reinstated by the Department of Corrections upon completion of the felony sentence. You have 20 days to appeal the order of this court, and I see that your attorney has electronically filed the notification of appellate rights, and I assume you went through that form. He told you about the timing. You have 20 days to appeal the order of the court. Did you go through that form with him on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. And so thank you. So in terms of the sentence, there will be a term of extended supervision. As conditions of extended supervision, I'm going to require absolute sobriety. I don't want you drinking, using any illegal drugs. You need to be thinking with a clear head and be with all your faculties, so you don't get involved in something just because you're under the influence. You need to be careful and be thoughtful about everything you do. I'm going to order that you not have any contact with any of the co-defendants in this case during your period of extended supervision. You know, you start hanging around with people who have been involved in wrongful activity, you're going to increase your chances greatly of getting involved again. You got to make a clean break, get with people who are not involved and haven't been involved in that kind of activity. I'm going to order that you be seeking or keeping full-time employment or school or combination of both. It's good to have a regular schedule, be making your own money, working hard. That's a great way to get on a different track, stay out of trouble. In terms of the sentence then, I weigh and balance those three factors that I've talked about, and I think that the recommendation of the state and is appropriate here. I will say to you, the sentences that some of the co-defendants got sound to me appropriate based on what I know about the case, but you're certainly a different situation because of your cooperation. And so I think it's a much different situation. So what I am going to do is on count 2, the felon in possession of firearms, sentence you to 2 years, 6 months, initial confinement, 4 years extended supervision. On count 11, the heroin charge, same sentence, 2 years, 2 years, 6 months, initial confinement, 4 years of extended supervision. Those two sentences are concurrent to each other. I would also make it concurrent to any other sentence. I have considered the earned release programs. I have decided that the earned release programs are not appropriate. I do think that you need some element of punishment in the case, despite your cooperation. And I think that you're really essentially getting too old for challenge incarceration. And I haven't heard enough about the substance abuse program, but also I simply think that you need some period of incarceration to continue your thoughtfulness, your reflection, and to really drive home the message that you've got to live for your kids and not for your own selfish decisions. And I think that your period of incarceration, I hope, will lead you there so that you never get involved in anything like this again. So I'm finding that you're not eligible for those programs. I'm going to give you this form, the written explanation of determinate sentence. You get a copy of it. It describes extended confinement or bad time. You can go through that yourself or with your attorney. And that is the order of the court. Any comments or clarifications from the state?
Just one thing that you mentioned during sentencing, Judge. The information is that the informant knew that Binion was a felon, not the other way around. I did confirm that the informant is a felon. His information was not turned over since we never reached the point of a final pretrial and jury trial. I think the inference is certainly that if somebody's buying a gun off a felon illegally, that the person buying it is also likely a felon. But I just wanted to clarify that. I don't know if that changes
I appreciate
your comments, but
yeah, that is essentially it's the inference. When you're selling a gun on the street, you're not going to be saying, "Are you a felon?" Because I don't want to sell a gun to a felon. It's a no questions asked type of sale is the way I would assume it goes down. And so that was why I provided that comment. It's essentially you don't know whether you're giving it to someone who shouldn't have one or not. And it's a don't ask, don't tell type of situation, I'm sure. So that was my thought anyway. All right, Mr. George, any additional comments, clarifications?
If I may approach, Your Honor, I do have the pre-trial incarceration credit form filled out, any ineligibility to vote, and the notice of right of post-conviction relief signed today.
Oh,
In
okay.
addition
Yeah,
to,
that's fine.
I know I've already e-filed them, but since clerk has the other form, I'll exchange with her, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. Mr. Binion, I really wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you stay on the path that you've described to me today. You can do it. It's just a matter of staying committed. So good luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Madam Prosecutor.
thank you.
Do you want that? Yeah.